You know, some people might think it's really far more simple not to even worry about doing things like shims. But I'll tell you what, if you ask your horse, he's going to tell you, please put shims there because it's going to make everything much more comfortable and allow my body to be free. So I want to try and make shimming as simple as I can for you. And I've just given you three main back types here to think about. There's the uphill horse, there's the hollow-backed horse, and then there's the downhill horse. And downhill means that the withers are either level or below the level of the hips, whereas uphill, the withers are above the level of the hips. And ideally, this is the best shape for a horse to be in because it allows him to lift his front end and bring his hindquarters underneath him. This is the worst posture for a horse to be in because all the weight is on the front legs. And when the rider's weight gets on the front legs as well, because that's the way the horse is going downhill, then you're in for a lot of problems, you know, with joints, because the front end is not supposed to carry the majority of the horse's weight when being ridden. That's the powerful hindquarters that you want. So everything you can do to get those hindquarters underneath is going to be what's best for the horse. Now, how shims are going to help you? Let's start with the downhill horse. If you think about where you would like him to be, you would like his back really to be up here. And so this is the area then that you need to lift the saddle. And you'll probably find that with a downhill horse, you're going to need to form a kind of wedge by putting one shoulder shim upright like this, and then taking the same shim and turning it sideways. So now you've got kind of a wedge there. And that gives you a nice smooth transition as it goes towards the back of the saddle. Depending on how downhill your horse is, you might need 2 or 3 shims in there, but that's going to be a very individual thing. Now, in this way, you put the rider's weight back, and it helps the horse then to bring his front end up. If you look at the hollow horse, you can't shim him the same way as this, because his problem is not at the front here, it's in the middle. When the back sags down like that, and the rider and the saddle go down into that valley, it literally traps the horse. He can't move his shoulders back, and he can't articulate his hips either, and so he gets like a broken bridge. Now, we strongly recommend using cavalettis or hill therapy that you can find out about on our website to restore a horse's posture, because this is a weak back. But even as your horse gets better, you're going to make sure that you're helping when you ride him by not sitting down in that hollow. So this is the area that needs to be built up here, and you simply put your shims in the middle like that. And again, depending on how hollow your horse is, you might need 1 or 2 layers. The most extreme that I've seen is 4, and I would recommend if your horse is that bad, you don't ride him because it's a weak structure. You've got to build him up first. Now, when it comes to the uphill horse, usually all you have to do with our saddles is put some shims at the front just to make sure that the saddle is giving him the clearance in his withers and that it still then stays level, you know, as we've shown you out there. With the horses, you can see how the saddle then sits in a way that it puts the rider on their balance point. So quite often on this horse, you will just have 1 or 2 shims in this area here, just to keep that space open for his shoulders to be able to move. Now, one other thing that you might need to think about is that sometimes you've got horses with very withered muscles around their withers. So like right behind the shoulders where I drew these, some horses are very hollow, they have no muscle at all. And that's usually because of saddles that have been very narrow and pinched them, and they can't actually use their back and shoulders in that area. So the muscles go away. So with ours, you'll find, with our saddles, you'll find that that area opens up and the muscles start to rebuild. So any horse, it could be this horse, or even this horse, could be withered behind the shoulders. And you would need to then put a pad in that spot just to help out. So I hope that makes it more simple. We've got lots more examples on our website. You'll see photographs, you'll see the shim patterns, and of course on this DVD, you'll see how we've done it for the horses that we're showing you. I know for me, I never really understood that you could change a horse's posture and his muscling by that much. You know, I'd see horses that were well muscled and then horses that were badly muscled, and I'd think that was confirmation. But it wasn't, you know, it was how a horse used himself. And, you know, if you see muscles that are really flat or wasted or even, you know, non-existent, that tells you they're not being used. So when you see a horse that's, you know, kind of longer and more developed on the underline, like, you know, big dropped chest and great big forearms, but there's nothing on top, then it tells you that that's what he's using to pull himself along in front. And then there's a small hindquarter and you know, a wasted top line. And I learned that you could actually change that. You know, first of all, you need to have a saddle that allows a horse to move, you know, to bring his back up and use his top line. And secondly, you stay out of the way of that. And by riding on your balance point and sitting further back, it helps a horse to do that. So I started to become really very conscious of, you know, a horse's shape and his posture. And I started to study what were the things that were causing that to be so bad. And that's what I want to teach people, is because a lot of the time we just ride along and we're oblivious. But if a horse does not have good strong muscles on his back, he can't carry a rider properly.